people are still joining. I would like to sincerely first thank Hello?
Yes,
Sorry,
hello, we lost you for a minute.
Thank you. I was lost in cyberspace. I would like firstly to welcome all of you to our Zoom meeting. And I would like to sincerely thank Professor Rosie Dorrington, who is our Kimberley Hall Fellow, but also a distinguished academic here at Rhodes. And she will be talking about a topic which has affected humanity. And all of us have been affected in one way or another. So I think it's really important that we get people who are knowledgeable to share with us some of the ideas on how we can actually coexist or live with this COVID pandemic. So I would also like to thank sincerely Charmaine for helping with the technical maneuvers behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Charmaine. So without wasting much time, I would like to ask Professor Rosie Dorrington to say a few words about yourself before we get into the presentation. Over to you, Rosie. Thank you very much. It's up to you whether you want to switch on your video or not. It's up to you. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. I'm delighted to see how many people have logged on to this Zoom meeting from Kimberley Hall. And it's wonderful to finally be back on campus and to have a connection again with Kimberley Hall. We've been so shut in our own little homes. And it's really such a privilege to be talking to all of you. And I want to take the opportunity to welcome all of our arriving students and also our second and third years back onto campus. I spoke with Professor Gambiza about the opportunity to talk to you guys about where we're going and what you need to be thinking about, because I think it's really important that we understand what our new normal is going to be. I am a professor of microbiology. My speciality is in virology, and I have been involved since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic in South Africa in March 2020, in providing scientific expertise to help the university make the best decisions for the university. So I have been involved in this for a while, and it's been astonishing to see how our knowledge of what is a brand new virus has changed the way we live. And I want to start off by, because we are now all on campus because we've all had at least one dose of the vaccine. And I just want to say for all of you, at the moment, 98% of all the staff on campus are vaccinated. And the students that are on campus, we're currently at 99.98% of students that are vaccinated. So congratulations to all of you for heeding the call, and for whatever reason you've done. I know for many people it's, I want to get onto campus, I'm going to go and get that vaccine. But we also live in a town, and what I also want to tell you is that Makanda, our little town, is the highest vaccinated municipality in the whole country. 75% of all the people that are eligible to be vaccinated in Makanda are fully vaccinated. And that's excluding you guys, because you're not permanent residents of the town. 75%, the country's average is 40%, and the average for our district is 45%. So the community in this town, together with Rhodes University, have done something that is quite extraordinary. So I just want to start by giving you four things that fully vaccinated people should know. The first is being vaccinated prevents you from going to hospital. It'll prevent you from severe COVID, and it prevents death. And it's over 90% efficient, even with the latest variants. So vaccination keeps people out of hospital, and they're kept out of hospital, they're kept out of serious disease, and it keeps people out of the morgue. Second thing is the vaccines, whatever anybody says on social media, the vaccines still reduce your chances of getting infected. They may not be as efficient at preventing severe disease, but they do reduce the chances. If you are standing next to somebody who is infected with COVID and is shedding virus, you are still protected from getting infected. And if you have just recently had your vaccine, you're as much as 75% protected from being. So 1 out of 10 times that you stand next to somebody and you're exposed, you may get infected, but the majority of the times you're not going to get infected. Third thing, if you're vaccinated and you do get infected, the chances are that you're going to be asymptomatic. That means you're not going to feel sick at all, or you're going to have very mild COVID. So what you would be looking for is you feel a little flu-y, you feel a bit off, got a bit of a headache, maybe a sore throat, a little bit of a fever, maybe, but you just don't feel right. And I'll get back to that. But you're not going to get seriously ill. And the next thing that's really important is if you are vaccinated, you will be less infectious than somebody who's unvaccinated. So you can still get the virus, but you are less likely to infect the person next to you because you produce less virus. So the vaccine makes you less likely to infect the people around you. And if the people around you are vaccinated as well, then the chances of you infecting them are even lower. And I'm just going to give you an illustration. So in December last year, I worked in a research laboratory and I have a large group of students. My group is fully vaccinated. Everybody's got their vaccines. And one of the people in my group tested positive for COVID. But there were 8 other people in the same laboratory, which is indoors with this person. Everybody was wearing their masks and they were all fully vaccinated, and not a single person developed symptomatic COVID. So even though they were in a group, indoors with somebody who was infected with COVID, they didn't get sick. And that illustrates that the vaccines really can protect you. And if you are careful about how you move around in indoor environments, you really have a very low risk of getting infected. Now, why is that important? Because if you are infected with COVID, 20% of people who get COVID get a problem called long COVID. And this is when you get sick and you just don't recover. You're chronically tired. There's something called brain fog where you forget where you are or what you're doing. And all of those we know are as a result of having had a COVID infection. And we know that the vaccines significantly reduce the chances that anybody who gets infected with the virus can get long COVID. And most people think, I'm young, I'm not going to get sick. You can get long COVID whether you're 15 years old or 50 years old. So this is not a virus that you want to get sick with. Okay, so that's all the scary stuff. Now I want to talk to you about, in residence. I know that many students are not yet fully vaccinated. You need to get fully vaccinated to be properly protected. And so there is a vaccination site on campus. Vaccine is obviously free. And you guys, if you only had 1 shot, you can get your second jab within 3 weeks of your first jab if you have a Pfizer vaccine. And I think it's 3 weeks with a J&J vaccine as well. And then you really are protected. You can feel a lot safer in the environment. Right, so now you're in residence. And I know everybody's itching to pull their masks off and you want to go back to normal. The reality is that the country is still in a state of emergency and it is still mandatory, i.e. the government law says you must wear your mask in public places and you must wear your mask when you are in lectures and annoyingly, you still have to wear your mask when you're outside. The law says your residence is a public space like common rooms, etc. But we know that you can't wear your mask at all times. And therefore, soon the government will be relaxing those rules. And I'm fairly certain that they're going to say you need to wear your mask in indoor facilities. So if you're in a lecture or you're in a common room, if you are I'll stop there. But if you're in a space where there are a lot of people, you should wear your mask to prevent the chances of infection. Or if you have an asymptomatic infection, to prevent you infecting someone else. Now, why should you think about that? Because there are many people around you that you may not know about that could have what we call comorbidities. So these are people who have illnesses that can make them very vulnerable to severe COVID. And some examples, people who have diabetes are at great risk of developing COVID complications. People who are immunocompromised, maybe people living with HIV or people who are having cancer treatment, they are also at severe risk of developing serious COVID and ending up in hospital. And then older people like the ladies that work in the kitchens, your lecturers, and other people that work on campus and also in the town. They are more at risk. If you're over 60 and you contract COVID, even if you're vaccinated, you have a higher risk of developing a serious disease. And so it's really important that all of us know, yes, the vaccines are protecting us, but the reason that we want people to be vaccinated on campus is so that we can also protect the people around us. So I know I've only got 15 minutes and it's 7:15, but I'm happy to ask a couple of questions. If you can put them in the chat maybe, and somebody can read them to me. Professor Gambiza.
Thank you. I'll try my reading skills. Let me see if there's any question. Not yet. Probably you can continue, Prof. And then if there are any questions, people can start posting to the chat. Thank you.
Okay, so I really, for now, with the legislation being as it is, and you guys need to be wearing masks on campus, and you need to wear masks in lectures. But I think if you're going to take your mask off, you're much safer if you do it outside. If you're going to be talking to people that you don't know, then you're much safer to talk to them outside. You're okay. I think you're safer on the sports fields outside. And then when you're in residence, you guys are going to need to decide who's in your bubble. So who are the people that you are going to associate with that you feel safe to take your masks off. I was talking about the symptoms of what you should do if you're feeling off. Our campus will only work if all of us, if we're not feeling well, take the opportunity to go and have a COVID test, and we're going to work at trying to see if we can make those tests more efficient and more affordable. If you think you've got COVID, put your mask on, tell the people around you you're not feeling well, and isolate yourself. Stay in your room until you feel better. If you're really feeling sick, get tested. And if you are tested, then if you're wearing your mask, you're much less likely to infect people. And if you have a COVID test, your department or your lecturers will give you an aggregate or will give you a leave of absence. But it's really important that we take the responsibility of, if we're not feeling well, making sure we protect people around. I see there is there's a question in the chat. Oh, it's Professor Gambiza saying, please feel free to ask questions. No question is a stupid question.
Hi, Prof. Dorrington. There is a question.
Yes.
It says,
Yes.
since measures have been lightened, does sanitization still play a pivotal role? Thank you.
I'm not convinced that COVID is passed from touch. So I think the way the COVID virus is transferred is by coughing and aerosols. However, we do live in a town where there's a water shortage, and you may have heard that there's been some waterborne illnesses, and sanitization may not be an effective way to control COVID, but it definitely is an effective way to control tummy bugs. So my advice to you guys under the current circumstances with our water shortages and problems with our water is to continue to sanitize, particularly before you go into the dining halls.
Thanks, Prof. Another question. Does having COVID make it less likely to contract COVID again? That's one, and then I'll read the next question.
So unfortunately, having COVID, if you've been vaccinated, no, let's stop. If you've had COVID and you're not vaccinated, the chances that you're going to catch the next variant is almost 100%. So there are people on campus who had COVID in December, the beta variant in 2020, then they got the Delta variant in June, and they got Omicron in December. Infection doesn't prevent you from getting COVID again. However, if you have been infected and you've been vaccinated, you're 100 times better protected than people who've had COVID or people who are vaccinated. So you are a super person. You are really have what we call it hyperimmunity or super immunity. The best thing is for people who've had COVID to get vaccinated because they are the best protected people.
Thanks,
next
Prof.
question, James.
Another question. I took the first dose last week. So when and where can I get a second one?
The government, when I was vaccinated last year, the government, because they didn't have sufficient vaccines to go around, they lengthened the time. I'm assuming it's the Pfizer vaccine. Our time was lengthened to 7 weeks, but the government has now shortened that to 3 weeks. So if you took your first Pfizer dose last week, then you can get vaccinated in 3 weeks' time. And I'd say get it done before the end of March. Aim to be fully vaccinated by the end of term. And you can get vaccinated at the university vaccination site, which is up at the Gavin Reilly Village. It's the postgraduate village next to the monument. And I think there is transport up the hill. You'll need to talk to, just find out if there's roads transport. But there is a vaccination site and you can book your vaccine so that you know that you're going to get vaccinated.
Thanks, Prof. Another question, does everyone get the same booster shot or will the shot be according to the vaccine we took before? That is, for example, Pfizer or J&J.
So at the moment, boosters are recommended for people over 50 and because they're more vulnerable. But at the moment, boosters are not being recommended for people that are in the younger age group. The government has given the go-ahead to get a booster that you can, if the same vaccine, like if you did Pfizer and the Pfizer shot is not available at your vaccine site, that you can get a booster. So the booster in Pfizer is the third vaccine, and in Johnson & Johnson, it's a second dose. My recommendation is for now, if you had 2 vaccine doses of Pfizer, you're probably going to wait 6 months before you're eligible for a booster if you need one. With Johnson & Johnson, I think the gap is 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And my recommendation at the moment is take the same vaccine that you got before. If it's not available, then go ahead and take the other one. There seems to be no indication that mixing your vaccines is a problem. Just at this stage, either vaccine, they're both excellent.
Thanks, Prof. There is a related question, and probably I'll ask one and two. The first one is probably you have already answered partly, or is only one booster shot necessary? That's the one question. And the other is, now should you not be feeling well and you decide to isolate, and you note that you will be, and not that you'll be missing lectures and tutorials, and the test, that is the test I think for COVID, comes back negative, and it turns out you had a really bad flu, will we still be eligible for an LOA?
Look, I'm not in a position to make a call on that, but I think if you're not feeling well, and you're obviously not well, I'm not saying that you need to do this to get out of tests. If you're going to get out of a test, if you have a test, you need a doctor's note, right? But at this point, we're still not, everybody isn't fully vaccinated, and we really don't know what the numbers are. I know that there's some people that have had flu, because there's members of my research group who've had flu and they've been quite sick. And the sensible thing to do is to stay at home, to isolate. But I do understand that there are times when there might be the temptation to take this, to take advantage of this. But I would suggest if you have a test and it's negative, then you know it's not COVID. You can say you felt sick, you went and got the test, and then talk to your lecturers. But you need to prove that you've had the test.
Thanks, Prof. There's a question, you might have answered it, but I'll just read it out anyway. Can you still get COVID even though you are fully vaccinated? That's the first one. And then the other question is, what do we do with our dining halls? I mean, there's many of us. Is the institution ready for contact learning or receiving back all students? Is there an isolation space reserved for positive people by the institution?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first question. Can vaccinated people get infected? I'm not saying COVID, because COVID is when you're sick. Can you get infected with the virus? And the answer is yes, you can. However, as I said before, vaccinated people in general develop asymptomatic disease, so they don't even know that they've been infected, or they have a very mild disease. They feel like they've got a cold and a bit of a sore throat. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in the days before we had a vaccine, we needed to have isolation because there was no way of protecting people if they got really sick. Now that people are vaccinated and we know that the vaccines are going to reduce the chances of people getting infected, the new regulations for if you test positive is if you are symptomatic, i.e. you're feeling sick, you're running a temperature, and you tested positive, then you need to self-isolate. And you can do that in your room because everybody's vaccinated. And I gave you the example of somebody in my research group. If you wear a mask around somebody who is self-isolating and they are vaccinated, the chances of the infection going on to infect somebody else is very low. So we don't need to remove people out of the dining hall. They can stay in their rooms, and if they're sick, they're sick. If you're asymptomatic and you need to self-isolate for 7 days, if you don't have any symptoms and for some reason you tested positive for COVID, the government says you don't need to self-isolate. And the reason for that is, if you don't have symptoms, you make very little virus. If you are vaccinated, you're going to make very little virus. And if you're wearing a mask, your chances of infecting the people around you are very, very small. So as long as you tell the people around you, look, I've tested, I'm asymptomatic, I'm wearing my mask, please wear your mask around me, the chances of someone else getting infected next to you are very small. I don't know if that answers the question. I don't think we need to be as terrified of catching COVID as we were, because we're all vaccinated. And that is why all of you getting your shots and buying into the vaccine mandate to come back to the university is something really special. Rhodes and Makanda are the shining light of what can be done if we all pull together. Because, and one last thing, we've never done this before. none of us knew. I mean, I was skeptical at the beginning of 2020 when we heard that there was this virus in China. I thought, yeah, it's going to be like the others. It'll blow over. It never occurred to me that the world would be shut down for 2 years. And in South Africa, 300,000 people have died, not 90,000. We know the excess deaths are 300,000. And I'm sure all of you know somebody who got COVID and got very, very ill. None of us could have predicted that was going to happen. And we're learning something new all the time. And we are going to have to learn how to live in the new normal. What we do know is that by all of us getting vaccinated, the new normal can be that much easier to manage. We are safer as a result of that. Are there more questions?
Yes, Prof. The other one is, how long does long COVID last, and what should one do, or what should I do if sometimes I experience long COVID symptoms, for example, brain fog and fatigue?
Yeah. The first thing is you need to realize you're not being stupid. It's real. We now know that it's a real illness, and you need to get a doctor to write a certificate to say to diagnose that that's what's wrong with you. And if you are experiencing that, you need to disclose it to your lecturers and to your ward and staff, because people need to know that this is a problem. Interestingly, for some people, if they get vaccinated, it seems to help with the long COVID symptoms. And for the majority of people, and I know this is not what you want to hear, but for the majority of people with long COVID, you struggle, and it can last for up to 6 months. In very severe cases, it can last longer. But you need to know that it's real. You're not just suffering from something that is in your head. It is real, and there are ways of dealing with it, and a doctor can help you if you go and see a doctor. But be honest about it. Say, I'm not feeling well, and I think this is what's wrong with me.
Thanks, Prof. Another question, which was directed at me, but I think it might be useful, the answer might be useful to most of us. Is the university still offering transportation to the postgraduate village for booster shots?
I don't know. That we need to ask the university.
Thank you.
Okay, just before we go there, the second shot is not a booster. The second shot for Pfizer is the second shot. Pfizer, you need 2 vaccinations. The booster is the third shot that people are to be fully vaccinated with Pfizer, you need 2 vaccinations. And in the case of the Johnson & Johnson, I think you need 1, but they are recommending that you get 2 shots. Then you're fully vaccinated. The booster is an additional vaccine that is being recommended for older people. So you're not getting a booster, you're getting the second of a two vaccine vaccination. I'm assuming because everybody's on campus, everybody would have got vaccinated in order before or at the same time as registration. So I think it's Professor Gambiza, it would be a good idea potentially to as Kimberley Hall to negotiate with the university that there might be transport from Kimberley Dining Hall to the Gavin Centre at a certain time for those people who need to get their second shots. But I'm assuming that by the end of March, everybody will be fully vaccinated because the 3 weeks will be up. So it's only going to be for a short time. But the exercise, it's a hill climb, but the exercise could be really good for you. And once you've had your shot, it's downhill.
Thanks, Prof. We will note all those important suggestions and questions. The other one is, where do we book for our second jab?
You send a message to, I think it's vaccine. Is it vaccine@ru.ac.za? Perhaps Mrs. Avery can tell us. I've forgotten where the booking system is. It is on the website. Sorry. Thank you. But there is an email site that you can book your time.
we will send the information to all students in Kimberley Hall, and obviously even those who are not in the hall who might have joined, so that you can share with colleagues. Thank you. Let me see if there is another question. Oops. Right. Here is one question. There have been non-pharmaceutical remedies going around. These remedies are said to help with curing COVID. One of these said remedies are drinking warm cherry wine. Do you think the use of socially shared remedies are a good plan of curing or preventing COVID symptoms?
No, I think if it's not a remedy that is approved by the South African Health Products Organization, SAHPRA, I would not. Yeah, the social remedies I would not go with. So I don't know how to put this, but I'll give you an example. I know that there was a widely held belief that a parasite medication called ivermectin was a COVID remedy. It has been, there is no evidence in clinical trials that ivermectin has any antiviral effect. So there's no experimental evidence or clinical trials with people that shows that it has any effect on suppressing the virus. And in fact, the drug gets made by a company called Merck, which is a very big pharmaceutical company. And they posted on their website, please do not use ivermectin as a cure for COVID. We make the drug and we're telling you that it doesn't have any effect. So the company that stands to make a lot of money out of people buying their pharmaceutical says, please don't do this. You know that it's not a remedy to use. The best remedy for COVID is to get vaccinated. And if you do get sick and it is severe, there are now antiviral drugs that have been developed for treating the virus that we know work, that are clinically approved. Talk to your doctor.
Thanks, Prof. Indeed, I think we'll heed that advice. I think most of us heard about a former president who suggested injecting people with disinfectant. So anyway, I won't go.
The University of Facebook and the University of WhatsApp, you need to be really careful about those online courses.
Thank you. Any other questions, colleagues?
There is a lot of information on the Rhodes website. If you look at, I'll post it in the chat, it's the Rhodes website /CBRTT. It stands for Coronavirus Response Task Team. And when you look there, there is a lot of information on COVID, on the variants, how the vaccines work, what you need to be aware of. You can find a lot of information there. There is a series of articles that we wrote last year called Straight Talk with Prof. Dorrington. And in there, we try to unpack the questions of the day. So if you need information, have a look there, or send in, contact somebody. You can contact me as well if you have questions, and also, relay questions through your Professor Gambiza. Ask if you have any questions. We just want you to be safe, and we want you to have a chance to begin to experience real university life and the experience of being on a campus with a lot of people and making new friends and learning as a group. That's really what we want. We want to get the university back to what it should be, and that is a learning institution where people can express themselves and learn without being fearful that they're going to get a terrible disease.
Thanks, Prof. Dorrington. Are there any other questions before I give some thanks? Thanks, Charmaine. I see Charmaine has posted a link which we can look at. on the chat. Any other questions? I see Casanova is waiting in the waiting room. Just let that person in. Okay. Right. I would like to take this. Any final words, Prof. Dorrington, before I give a vote of thanks?
I'm good.
I'm
just happy that you're all back.
Right. I'm really, really so proud for all of you. Currently, there are 137 of you who have listened to Prof. Dorrington. I know she's extremely busy, but as our Hall Fellow, we have a long history with Professor Dorrington, and she's always willing to be available to assist our Hall. Thank you very much. And most of you, I know you're also busy with assignments and so forth. And to me, this is further evidence of leadership. We are leading by example. We are getting information which can empower us to make decisions which will help us to live with this pandemic. We are not victims, but we can overcome if we follow the scientific advice as provided by our experts. And thank you all of you for coming. And I'm sure, Charmaine, we will be in a position to share the recording with other students who have been unable to attend and other members of the university. But thank you very much, Prof. Dorrington, and all of you for coming, and especially Charmaine for controlling things behind the scenes. Some of us belong to the generation of messenger pigeons, but thank you very much. Together as a team, we can overcome. Thank you and have a very, very good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Charmaine, again. I'm sure you will share the recording, Charmaine. We will communicate offline, but thank you very much for your assistance.
You're welcome.